Thanks everyone for coming today to learn more about our Habitat Kit program. Jessa and I have run this program for the past 3 years. This is our 4th year now, and we really enjoy being part of this project. I'm going to start off just talking a little bit about the kit program, and then I'm going to turn it over to Jessa, and she's going to walk you through the application process. Okay, so for those of you who are not familiar with Cerseis, we are an environmental nonprofit, and our goal is to protect biodiversity by protecting invertebrates. So we have pollinator team. Jessa is on our pollinator team, and they do a lot of work to create pollinator habitat, especially in agricultural lands, but not exclusively in ag lands. We have a pesticide reduction team and an endangered species team. I'm on the endangered species team. So Xerces does a lot of outreach and education. We do advocacy. We also do a lot of technical guidance to people interested in doing conservation work. And we also do on the ground habitat restoration work. So our Habitat Kit program started in 2018 as a response to the big decline in monarch overwintering populations in the West. So Western monarch populations in 2018 declined from about 200,000 monarchs along the coast to less than 30,000. We were trying to think about how we could expand our capacity to get habitat on the ground, and realized the best way to do that was to help other people to do the work that they wanted to do. Many of our partners have experience and interest in restoration, but maybe they don't have the funds for plant materials, or they're not sure which plants to use to best support monarchs and other pollinators. So that's how our kit program was born. We've run this program for 3 years in California, and then started kit programs in Santa Fe, New Mexico, and the Northeastern US. And between all of those programs, Xerces has given away over 150,000 plants to almost 450 different projects to create pollinator habitat. This photo is students in the horticulture department at San Joaquin Delta College planting this lovely pollinator garden, which looks absolutely fantastic now. Okay, who are the kits intended for? These kits are intended to go onto working lands, so farms, ranches, grazing land, that type of thing, or public spaces, so natural areas that are open to the public in some capacity, such as lands, trusts, state lands, federal lands, or public lands in cities and towns, such as parks, schools, other city property, libraries, city buildings, things like that. So the kits are not intended for home gardens or other private property apart from working lands. So these are not intended to be used to landscape your backyard. They're for creating habitat in working land and natural areas and public lands. They're also not intended to, we don't give away sets of kits to other nonprofits or agencies to distribute as they see fit. So we like to know where the kits are going and decide which kits are going to which location. We have a variety of different kits that we've tailored to different regions and different types of kits in order to create kits that will work in a variety of different situations. So we've got 5 regions in California. We've got the Sacramento and San Joaquin Valley and the Sierra Nevada foothills. And the location to pick up the kits for those regions are in Lockford, California, which is sort of north of Stockton. We have kits available for the Central Coast and the coastal foothills, and we're working on a kit location this year, which would be located somewhere probably in Monterey or adjacent counties. We're working on that, but it'll be a little bit closer than driving to Lockford. And then we have kits available for Southern California, which can be picked up at Valley Center. So we provide the plants for free, but you are responsible for picking up the kits. Delivery is not available for the kits, unfortunately. We have several types of kits, and I will talk about each of these in a minute, but we have hedgerow kits, wildflower kits, and garden kits. And you can request multiple kits and multiple kinds of kits. So you can request 1 grassland kit and 2 hedgerow kits, or whatever you need for your project. Right now, the only type of kit available for Southern California is our Southern California garden kit. All the kits contain milkweed, unless your project site is really close to an overwintering site, in which case it will not have milkweed. If you're interested in knowing which species are in the kits, you can get that information on our website, and Rachel will post a link to the webpage that has that information. There's also a handout on our website that has all of this information as well. Unfortunately, we cannot offer customized kits. So we always have people email us and say, oh, I don't want this species. Can you sub out this other species? We can't do that. But if there's species that you can't use for whatever reason, what we do let you do is just leave behind the plants you don't want, and then other kit partners can pick those up and just take them and use them. Okay, so our hedgerow kits, we have hedgerow kits and riparian hedgerow kits. So these have plants that can tolerate a little bit more water, flooding, light flooding. So these are available, again, for every region but Southern California. And these kits have a combination of 85 woody and herbaceous plants. These are enough to create 500 feet of linear hedgerow, but you don't have to plant it in a linear configuration if you don't want to, but many people do. These come in tree band size or 1 gallon containers. Our grassland kits, we have the wildflower grassland kit and a riparian wildflower kit. Again, these are available for the Central Valley, Central Coast and Coastal Foothills, and the Sierra Nevada foothills. And these kits contain 480 small plugs. So they're about 1 inch by 1 inch, and some grass seed, which will cover about 0.1 acres if you're planting them every 3 feet. So for those of you who have been through this process before, our grassland kits are smaller this year than they have been in the past. So just something to note. And then finally, we have garden kits. So we have garden kits available for all the regions except Southern California. And then in Southern California, we have our Southern California garden kit. So these are much smaller than the other kits. It's 32 herbaceous plants and grasses, including milkweed, enough to cover about 500 square feet. These are really great for pollinator gardens. So if you're wanting to create a garden at a school or at a park or some other public space, these are nice because they're smaller and they have more plant diversity. So the plants in these kits are container size. The container size are tree bands and gallon size. To choose the species for the kits, we did a lot of work to figure out which species are most important to include to support monarchs and other pollinators. We also wanted species that were drought tolerant, especially for the upland kits, the non-riparian kits. We wanted regionally appropriate species, but species that were still widespread enough that they would be appropriate throughout the region. The plants are all California natives, and we're starting to incorporate host plants for other imperiled butterflies. So that's something we'll be doing more and more of as this program continues to grow. So what happens if you get a kit? If you get a kit, there are a few requirements of you, and they are listed in the Project Partner Collaborative Agreement form, which you'll need to sign. And the requirements are not onerous. They're not too overwhelming, I think. After you plant the kit, you have to email us and let us know. Let us know that you planted it. Let us know how big the area was that you planted and send some pictures. And then next June, at the end of next June, you have to fill out a really short report that just gives us an overview of the maintenance and site prep activities that took place. Let us know how well the plant's established and if you conducted any outreach activities. And finally, so a lot of people apply for these kits as part of an agency, or maybe they're at the school. If you leave your position, that's fine. You just have to, I mean, obviously that's fine, but we just need you to notify us of who will be taking over the kit. Let us know that you're not going to be the point person anymore, and to let someone at your work know about the program and the requirements. So that's happened before, that people leave and then we're sending this email to people that it's time to pick up their kits and nobody is getting this email. So you just have to let us know if you're leaving and who the new point person is. If you do not meet these requirements, you will be ineligible to get future kits. And I should say, you can apply for kits even if you got kits in the past. You can continue to reapply. So the timeline is that the interest forms are available on our website from March 1st through April 15th. That's when the application forms will be closed. We will let you know whether or not we can give you kits by the end of May. You'll have 2 weeks to sign that partner agreement form indicating that you want the kits and you agree to the terms. And then the kits will be available at the end of October, early November. We try to let you know the dates as soon as possible, but there's sometimes some wiggle room depending on the nurseries. And then your annual report is due at the end of next June. Okay, so now I'm going to turn it over to Jessa. She is going to talk about the application form.
All right. Process. Thanks, Angela. Let me get my screen set up. Give me one more second. Here we go. All right. Does that look all right?
Yes.
Perfect. Thank you. All right. So Angela just gave a really nice overview of the kit project and highlighted some of the major aspects of the project. I'm going to try to walk people a little bit through filling out the actual interest form and just some tips. I'm not going to go over every question on the form, but I'm going to try to cover the ones that I've seen in the past, kind of trip people up a little bit. So I think the most important thing to realize is that the interest form is really like a project proposal. It's your opportunity to show us that your project is well designed and really carefully thought out. And as with any sort of application, filling out the form doesn't guarantee that your project will be selected. We will choose as many projects as our budget allows us to do, as many of this, really solid, good looking projects. And we certainly would love to fund everybody, but that just doesn't always happen. There's a link here, and I think Rachel will also put this link in the chat box. This is the actual link for the interest form for those of you who maybe don't already have it and are interested in applying. One thing I wanted to mention was this idea of applying for multiple projects and how that works, because people do get kind of confused about this. So you can apply for more than one project. However, you have to submit a separate application for each project. So a project is described as either like a distinct parcel of land that's managed by a single entity or agency. So a specific county park, a specific school, or a single farm or ranch. You can certainly, like I said, apply for multiple projects. So if you are, say, a technical service provider like an RCD, and you're working with several different ranchers and several different farmers, you can apply for multiple projects, but you will just be submitting a different interest form for each one of those entities, for each farm or each ranch that you want to work on. Kits can be split up within a single project area. So for example, if you wanted to use the kits to plant 2 different hedgerows on the same farm, just on different parts of the farm, you can do that, but they cannot be split up through multiple different projects. So you can't split a kit up over 2 different farms or 2 different schools. So you have to use the whole kit within one project area. Larger projects can also apply for multiple kits. So you could ask for 2 or 3 different kits for the same farm, provided you have somewhere to put them or somewhere to use them. This is the very beginning of the interest form, and I just want to make sure that people are thinking about this when they go to fill out the form. The email address that you enter in that field becomes sort of the default main point of contact. So make sure you think about who you want the main point of contact to be before you start filling this form out or before you enter that email. That point of contact, that person whose email you put in, that should be the person managing the project. That will be the person ultimately responsible for making sure that the project gets completed and that, you know, the reports get done and all of that. It's really up to you who you want to put there. So, you know, if you're a farmer and you're managing your whole project by yourself, that would be you. However, if there is like an RCD working on the project, you could put the RCD as the main point of contact for the farmer. That part is really up to you. But again, remember that it needs to be like whoever you enter here is the person ultimately responsible and the person who's sort of planning on managing the project. And as Angela mentioned, if for some reason there's a staff turnover, you will want to notify us, let us know who the main point of contact is so that we're not sending emails out into the void. Because you'll want to know, you know, when the kits are ready, when you can up and all of that information. This next field, it says which describes, best describes your affiliation. And sometimes when there's multiple people collaborating on a project, they don't know who to check, which box to check. So whatever you check on this box should match the affiliation of the main point of contact that you put down. So if you are a tribe and that's the point of contact is someone from a tribe, that would be the box that you check, for example. Angela did already describe this, but I'm just going to go over it again really quickly. We do have different kits tailored for different regions: Sacramento Valley, San Joaquin Valley, Central Coast and Coastal Foothills, the Sierra Nevada Foothills, and Southern California. You are not in one of those regions. Unfortunately, we do not have a kit that's suitable region. So just make sure you consider that before you start filling out this form. And we really leave it up to you to tell us which region you're in. If you're uncertain, you can check in with us, or you can look at the species list and use your own familiarity, like if you're kind of between two of these different regions. But we trust you sort of place yourself in the proper region. Also, Angela did go over all the different types of kits, and I wanted to just cover it again and make sure that people understand it. And you know, all of these descriptions are available on our website as well as on that handout, so you can kind of read through it and mull it over before you start filling out the form. But generally speaking, the wildflower kits are comprised of forbs and grasses. The hedgerow kits include woody plants along with the forbs and grasses. Those are sort of the main differences between those kits. And then the garden kits are generally smaller statured plants, or just smaller plants that don't take up as much space, and a smaller number of plants. As Angela mentioned, they're great for like school gardens or urban farms situations like that. And as we mentioned, you can request multiple kits for the same project. So if you're, say it's a city park and you want to do both a hedgerow kit and a garden kit, you can certainly request both. But in the next question where it asks you how many kits you're requesting, make sure you put how many of each type so that we know, I guess I want one hedgerow and I want one wildflower or one garden or whatever it is, just so that it's super clear what you're asking for. This next section is the Habitat Project Plan, and this is really the heart of the interest form. This is really the project proposal part. So really take some time to describe exactly what you're going to do with the kits and how you're going to use them. The first question actually asks where and how the kit will be used, and sometimes people get a little confused by that question. So we're looking for an answer that addresses sort of both physically how the kit will be used, like in the larger landscape, as well as sort of conceptually, if that applies to you. So for example, you could say, I want to extend my existing hedgerow down to an adjacent riparian area to create habitat connectivity, or to connect, you know, the riparian area with my existing hedgerow. So that's both a sort of physical description as well as this conceptual concept of connectivity. I say I want to use the garden kit in the entrance to my community garden, and I want to use that as a learning center for students when they come to visit the garden or something like that. So that's kind of what we're looking for with that question. There's a whole series of questions that really get into the nitty-gritty about site preparation and irrigation. And so the reason that we're asking all of these questions is just basically because we want your project to be successful. And the more that you've thought about these things ahead of time, the more likely it is that your project will be successful. Plants obviously need things in order to grow. They need sunlight, they need decent soil, they need some irrigation, and obviously they're going to need some ongoing management. So those are the factors that we're trying to sort of determine. So, if you're feeling this firm out and you think, oh, you know what, this area is really actually pretty shady. Maybe I should pick a different spot, or this area has issues with erosion because it's really steep. Maybe that's not the best place. So that's sort of why we ask you to describe all of these different things about your project. It's really just to help you with the project planning and figure out sort of the best place, the best way to use the plant materials that you'd be receiving. There's also a section about protection from pesticides. So we do want to say pesticide use is not a deal breaker. So I don't want that to discourage people. But pesticide use does require mitigation, and I'll be talking about some of that in the next slide here. But I wanted to also define the word pesticides for people, just because I think some terms can be confusing. So when we use the word pesticide on this form, we're asking about herbicides, fungicides, insecticides, and miticides. And we're also asking about organic pesticides. Those also need to be included in this. In the past, we've had people skip this whole section, just say we're organic and then move on. But that really only works if you literally don't spray any kind of pesticide at all. Even if you're organic, if you're using organic approved pesticides, we still need to know about that. And because some of those products can still be toxic to pollinators. So it's just important to consider all of that. In terms of mitigation, there's a lot of different things that it could include, and there's opportunities for you to both sort of check boxes as well as sort of describe what mitigations you might be using. So we're looking for things like, good spatial buffers or appropriate product selection, like things that are not classified as toxic to pollinators. Maybe seasonality, like you only spray in the winter when insects aren't active or things aren't blooming. Specialized equipment, maybe use hooded sprayers instead of an air blast. So those are the kinds of things that we're looking for in terms of the sort of risk mitigation. There are a couple questions that are really specific to these spatial buffers. What we're really looking for is that the habitat area itself will be protected. We're not really at this point talking about what else is going on the property. So for most pesticides, if pesticide use is at least 60 feet away from the project area, it's pretty low risk of drift. And so you should be in pretty good shape. And this is for most pesticides. The large exception to that would be neonicotinoid pesticides. Those tend to drift. They move really readily in soil as well as in the water. They can drip really easily. And so for that one, we're actually asking, if they're used within 200 feet of the project site, it's a lot more problematic. So much wider buffer sort of required for that. So that's kind of the rundown of the application process and how it works. I know we probably got questions, but I do just want to thank all of our donors for supporting and all of our funders, for supporting this project, both in the past and present. And if you are interested in giving back and supporting this project more or any of our other work, we really encourage you to do so. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing and we can take some questions. Hold on 1 second.
All right, thank you both. We just have 2 questions currently. I'm sure we'll have more as we come in. Once again, for folks who may have joined a little bit late, just use the Q&A icon. The first question, is there a limit on the kits? And I'm not sure if they mean the number of kits they can apply for, maybe.
There's not, we didn't set a limit per se, because we, it just depends. So no, there's no limit within reason. We are looking at a lot of applications on a lot of different projects. So some people who ask for like really large number of kits sometimes get partially funded. Like we'll tell them, oh, we can't give you 10 kits, but we can offer you 5 or something like that.
Okay, perfect. For the garden kits in a community garden scenario, would Xerces prefer project to have kit planted in one single location, or can a garden divide the kit into different locations within the garden?
You want to take that, Angela?
Sure. You can do whatever's best for your site. So if it works better to divide it up into multiple locations, that's fine. It's just that the whole kit needs to be used at the community garden. So whatever works for you.
Okay, perfect. Someone is asking if you're available to assist with site evaluation.
I'm sorry, with site what?
Evaluation.
I think it depends on where you are. And well, to some extent who you are, but mostly where you are. So we have a couple partner biologists with Cerseis who can come and do a site evaluation if you're interested in applying and you want some help and you want some feedback on like where to create the habitat and maybe some tips before you dig into the application. So we do have staff that can do that. Those folks are located one of them is located in the San Joaquin and the other is located on the Central Coast. So for those regions, we can provide that type of assistance. If you're outside of those regions, it's probably going to be a little bit more difficult for us to do because we don't have staff on the ground. So I think I can put our email address in the chat box in a second here, but I think if that's something that you want, just email us at Central Valley Pollinators and tell us where you are, and then we can go from there.
All right, great. Someone's asking specifically if California milkweed would be part of the kits.
Oh, I guess I should take that one too.
Yeah.
We don't know yet. So we collected some California milkweed seed last year in the hopes of including it in the kits. And we're currently, we took that seed and we're doing some propagation trials with that seed. If those trials are successful and we're able to get a decent amount of it to germinate, we will be growing it out for the kits this year for 2022. But we just planted those trials last week, so it's too soon to tell. But it is definitely our hope that we will be including that species in the kits, or at least in some of the kits. And one thing I should also mention, there's a question in the application about the project partners' willingness to either collect seed or let Xerces staff on site to collect seed. So for species that we don't have a lot of, like the California milkweed, that would be a scenario where we would love to, once we disperse the kit, if you're growing it successfully through the kits, that we could come back and collect more seeds so we can have more of it available for more people in future years.
Okay, great. More questions coming in. Is the plant pickup location going to be based on region or based on proximity to the project to the nursery / nearest pickup location?
I can take that. So for Southern California, the location is at the Moosa Creek Nursery. That's the nursery that provides those plants. For the Central Valley and the foothills, the location is at the USDA Plant Materials Center in Lockford. And that's just, it's been a good place. It's sort of central. They have a lot of space, traffic flow. So that's just been a a good location, and we're trying to add a location on the Central Coast. And it's just gonna be dependent on if we can find a place that has enough space for the plant, that has water, bathrooms, enough place for cars to move around. So we put out some feelers to find that location, but we're just trying to find a central place because it is hard for some of our partners in the past that are in the Central Coast. It's a long drive. So we're just trying to find one more location. And we do have another nursery we're working with on the Central Coast now, but just trying to find a slightly more convenient location for some of those folks. So as soon as we know where that is, we'll share that information.
All right, next question. Can this be used as part of an NCRS contract?
I can take. Yeah, I think they mean NRCS, Natural Resources Conservation Service. And it, to the best of my knowledge, like if it's an EQIP contract, which is what most of them are, yes, this can definitely be used for EQIP projects.
Okay. Next question. Someone mentioned that you don't have to accept all of the plants in the kits, but what is best for our growing area? I think they're just confirming that that's true.
Right. Sometimes some of the sites have restrictions on the species that they can plant. So you can just leave behind the species that you don't want and other kit partners can take them, but we cannot sub out species. Like if you don't want, I don't know, Solidago, we can't sub out a different species for that.
Can you please repeat the Southern California location?
Yes, it is Valley Center.
I don't have the exact address in front of me, but it's near San Diego.
It's about, yeah. Moosa Creek is the nursery, so look up their location in Valley Center.
Okay, perfect. Someone did ask if this was going to be recorded, and I'm just putting the link to our YouTube channel in the chat. It will be recorded and posted probably by the end of today, if not really tomorrow. What size container are the milkweed plants in?
It depends a little bit on the type of kit. So for the hedgerow kits, most of the milkweed will be in 1 gallon containers, although some of it will be in slightly smaller size containers. There's a lot of different size containers out there, and different nurseries sort of like to use different sizes. So there's like a tree band, which is smaller than a gallon. There's a DP, which I think is one of our newer nurseries likes to use, which bigger than a tree, but smaller than a gallon. So the largest size would be the 1 gallon. Then our Grassland kits also have milkweed in those, and those are in plug trays. They're larger plugs than we've used in past years. I think they're, instead of 1 by 1 inch plugs, they're 1.5 or maybe 2 inch by 2 inch plugs. So it really varies from depending on which kit you get. The other thing that we did last year that we're hoping to do this year, we don't know yet, is to offer some of the milkweed as a rhizome to be planted. So it's sort of like planting a bulb or an iris or something, where you're actually planting the underground part of the plant. It's a really great way to plant. It's easier to plant. It's a more durable plant material, and it tends to transplant better. We hope to have those available again this year, but we don't know for sure at this point in time.
All right, would you please recommend a kit for a project located adjacent to the coastline and Highway 1 in Monterey County? And they're just talking about how milkweed is not recommended to be planted within 5 miles of the coast.
So we just take the milkweed out of the kit, and so it kind of depends on what your project is. If you think that a hedgerow kit would work better than a Grassland kit, like that sort of depends on what the project is. But if it is close, we just take out the milkweed. I said there were no substitutions, but we do add a different plant. So that's the exception.
That's exactly what I was about to say.
I know. It's like,
only in those cases where you cannot, where you're too close to the coast to get milkweed, we will substitute with other plants so that you have the same total number of plants. So
yeah.
All right, more questions coming in. This is great. Can you confirm that all the plants included in every kit are native plants?
Yes.
It's a great response.
That one was easy. That's an easy question.
Yeah.
This person has a question. They planted a few kits at a project in 2020 and they were advised to reapply for 2022. Is there anything special they need to mark in the application?
I don't think so.
There's a question if you've worked with us before, so you can mention the kit there. Yeah. Just make sure you've turned in all your report.
And we do really like it when people reapply, provided that they've been successful in the past and, sort of provided us with all the information that we request. It's nice to see folks coming back and doing more. So in general, we encourage that as long as you've done everything that you were supposed to do on your end.
If applying for different types of kits at the same project, does the applicant need to submit an application for each kit type requested?
No, they can just, as long as it's the same project, which means, the same location or, then no, one application is enough.
Okay. So the previous question, Brian was asking about the reapplying for another kit for a following year. It was regarding plants that may have failed to thrive.
Yeah, if there is, it really depends on why they fail to thrive. If they fail to thrive because you forgot to irrigate them, that might not work much, or you failed to install the irrigation system you said you were going to, that could be a problem. But if they fail to thrive because of something unforeseen, like, wow, we didn't even know we had a deer problem and deer came in and ate the hedgerow down, or we did have a quality control issue one year with a nursery that we no longer work with. We did get some plants that were not very well rooted, which we totally apologize for. So, if it was part of that batch, like, wow, we got these, when we try to transplant these, the dirt, the root ball just fell apart. And I think that's why they didn't thrive. Like, that's not on you. So it really depends on the reason. And I definitely, like, when you fill out the application, you can describe what happened and, your assessment of why. But yeah, if it's something that was really outside of your control, we would not be holding you responsible for that. And it's totally fine to say, yeah, I want to interplant this hedgerow because it didn't do well the first time.
Okay, great. We have one more question. And if anyone else has any more questions, feel free to put them in the Q&A. This person is asking that this initiative and this project is talking about for the fall, but do you have any milkweed ready to plant next month?
No. Nurseries might. You could just check directly with different nurseries, but we do not. Sorry.
Okay, well, those are all of our questions. Those were great questions. We'll just wait a couple seconds here to see if anyone else has any. But again, just a reminder, this will be recorded and on our YouTube channel. Jessa put in a great email address to use specifically for this project. We also have links for the application and for the website if you have any additional questions. Yeah, looks like.
One thing I'll add for anyone doing a school project, just make sure that you mention in there in the maintenance section how you intend to care for it over the summer. That's something sometimes people leave out, and sometimes you can't access the school grounds during the summer. So just something we're thinking about when we look at applications specifically for school gardens.
That's a really good reminder.
Yeah, and just for folks who maybe want some technical assistance, again, filling out their application, like, we want to try to help. So do email us if you just feel like you need help or want an assessment. Again, I sort of described where we have staff on the ground that could actually come out to your site and do a visit and talk to you. if you're from outside that area, we could probably still set something up with, where we ask you to submit like an aerial map and some photos, and we get you on the phone with one of our staff. So even if you're not local and you want help, don't let that stop you. We'll connect you with some of our staff that can kind of help walk you through it a little bit more if that's what you need.
Yeah, and if you have questions about this is my project, does this fit or something like that, you can always email us as well.